Welcome to the In Vivo Project podcast, where we talk about real world, real life experiences that empower men to embrace vulnerability so they can live life to the fullest. My name's Eric Payton. I'm your host. And today I'm joined by Larry G. Larry is a musician, artist, creative director, and entrepreneur, and also happens to be one of my best friends. Larry, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for finally getting me on.
Yeah, dude. Well, I think we'll just jump right in. One of the themes that, the theme of this podcast is Borrowed Time, which is a song that you wrote back in 2020, right?
Somewhere around that time, yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about Borrowed Time and how that kind of plays into where we're at right now.
Well, during the time when Borrowed Time was written, it was like right before or either at the height of the pandemic. I know it was kind of released during the pandemic at that time. And it was co-written by myself along with Caleb Truman and Grant Thompson. And it was a collective effort. But basically, it's one of those songs from what it looked like is, Borrowed Time, we're not promised tomorrow. And seeing how it connected with people during the pandemic, it kind of made sense because, we were all kind of like living in an isolated like bubble.
Yeah.
So it almost felt like we were living on borrowed time, especially with just not knowing, living kind of like in the unknown. It made perfect sense. And, fast forward, to 2023, and this song is honestly taken a whole new meaning, like for myself in my journey.
Yeah, I love that. Talk a little bit about what that journey's been like for you. You just had the diagnosis that you got, and I think, I just want to tell you how much it means to me to have you on board with the In Vivo Project, to just share your story and let me be a small part of your journey, but talk about that diagnosis that you just got recently.
Yeah, well, thanks for actually having me on. I'm super grateful for, this opportunity to get on a platform like this and kind of, share my story, but hopefully inspire someone through what I've been going through. Earlier in May of this year, I went in for a routine like eye checkup. My eyesight was kind of bugging out.
Right.
I think it was started like changing around last year, around November or October. I started having problems like looking at my phone, and I remember hitting you up. You're like, oh man, it's just old age.
Yeah,
and
dude.
We were cracking and making jokes about it and stuff. And I kept putting it off and putting it off, putting it off. And finally, the company I work at, Artist Uprising, I just gotten benefits with the company. So I was like, you know what? I have vision. Might as well just go ahead and get this taken care of and get some glasses. Mm-hmm. And so basically I go in for the eye exam. The doctor, our optometrist, his name is Chris. He they take an x-ray of my eyes, and he notices some hemorrhaging. And immediately at that point, he's like, hey, I need to check your blood pressure.
Yeah.
And so he checks my blood pressure, and it's at 177. And he's like, this appointment is over with. You need to get to urgent care right now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, really? You think I need to go to urgent care? And so I'm trying to remain calm, mind you, the whole time. And so I basically head down to urgent care. The name of the place, though, was Eyepieces. And that's where I was getting my eyes worked on. So shout out to Chris and everyone at Eyepieces. Yeah. But anyways, I head out to urgent care, and I get there, and the doctor checks my blood pressure, and it's at 188.
Yeah, it's gone up.
Yeah,
obviously.
It's going up.
Right.
And I think obviously the news, the doctor telling me that, the optometrist telling me this and then that. So I think like en route to urgent care, like I'm starting to
freak out.
And I get to urgent care. He checks my blood pressure. It's 188. And he's like, there's nothing I can do. You have to head out to Medical City, which is the hospital. here in Dallas. And so I head to the emergency room. But before that, I pick up my girlfriend and I tell her like, hey, you mind going with me? I was like, we'll be in and we'll be in and out, and we'll go get some dinner afterwards.
Yeah.
And by the time I get to the emergency room, my blood pressure had gone up to 245.
Wow.
Yeah. And at that point, they put me in this other room, and they said the hope was still like, I just didn't want to stay there in the hospital, but that was the hope, is to get out that night.
Yeah.
So they have me in one of these rooms. They got me on an IV, and then they're like, we're going to do an MRI. And
You're just freaking out,
I'm
bro.
just freaking out,
Yeah.
you know?
Rightfully so.
I remember
man.
calling my HR director at work. I don't know why, but just to let her know I wouldn't be coming in for work. I was so delusional at that point. I was like, I should call work, and broke down and told her, like what was going on, called my family, and I go in for the MRI. And it was a surreal moment, because you never think that
Right.
shit's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And then here I am laying on a table, laying down, and like you're going into this machine.
It's like a movie.
Yeah. And when you see those things in the movies, it's always not the best results.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I was thinking of a completely different diagnosis, and I'm asking the guy that's like pushing me in, is the chances of getting this, like,
Yeah.
is this bad, or is it going to be okay? And he's trying to like be cool, but he's like, I'm paraphrasing here. He's basically telling me like, yeah, man,
Anything could happen.
can happen, basically.
Yeah.
And so I get back in the room, and I'm just waiting, and they're like, we're going to have to keep you here overnight. And that's like the worst thing, like, you want to hear. They take me up to, I think it was the ICU. I forgot the name of the unit, but they get me up there. They're undressing me. They're putting me in like a robe. They're attaching me to an IV. They've got all these wires in me and stuff. And you're hearing this machine that's watching your blood pressure. And I could barely like sleep the whole night. I remember talking to the nurses, just trying to like get as much information that I could.
Yeah.
From there, my girlfriend was with me the whole time. And she was like, you're like asking a lot of questions.
Right. Well, this
This is stuff
a life
that
altering.
the doctor could have like, but for me, it was just like my world was like spinning.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things you just never know. So anyways, the whole thing about it being just in and out turned into 3 days and 2 nights, MRIs, CAT scans, and then the biopsy. And so they take me on the last day that I'm there early in the morning. I head out for a biopsy. I'm in the waiting room where all the other people are out there for their biopsies, and everyone that's in that room is like
Going through it.
they're going through it, man. They look like they're knocking on the door. I remember looking over at one person, and they were just like, eyes were like behind their head, and I just remember just sitting up. And at that point I was like, I ain't that dude. Like, I'm going to be cognizant. I'm going to let the nurses know, like, I'm not going to be some lame duck here, just like dead to the world. Like, that's when I was like, something in me was like, no, this is not the narrative here.
Yeah.
But still, you go through the biopsy, then you go through the waiting process of a few weeks. And I remember seeing my nephrologist, and then, he basically said, and I was so concerned about one diagnosis that I didn't understand what was about to come.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't have that one diagnosis.
Which was
C word.
the cancer,
cancer.
word. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you, man.
Yeah,
Like,
that was one thing that was just like behind my head. But when he told me that that wasn't the case, but that I had a stage 4 kidney disease, and that I had IgA nephropathy. And when he said that, he told me, he's like, don't look it up. You know, it's not something you want to go a rabbit hole you want to go down. Of course, I go down the rabbit hole.
Immediately go down the rabbit hole.
I just knew, like, reading from it, that I would not really go into it anymore, because I knew, like, that wasn't gonna be my narrative. But at the same time, this whole period, like, since then, when it all happened, I was grieving. I was going through a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And I was grieving the loss of, like, the person who I was right up until I got diagnosed, because I was living my best life. Like, I was just living life. I was, you know, having fun at work, you know, having fun with my friends, just released an album, you know, like, with thoughts of, like, the next EP and all that stuff. And I was just in this really great space, started dating this really amazing girl, and great with my family, you know, like, life couldn't have been better. And I felt like it was getting better. I was losing weight, you know, like, but then to get that diagnosis, everything kind of, like, you're not realizing it, or I wasn't realizing it, but I think for a while there, and I think this has to do a lot with my, you know, just being grieving the loss of who I was. I think just that moment and that part made it really hard for me to get back to that normal person, that person who I was. Because then you start dwelling into, you start dwelling into those problems, and then releasing it on people who you don't need to release it on.
Right.
And I remember it was a slow decline, where I just got in a really dark space.
Yeah.
And I was starting obsessing over my numbers, started obsessing over life, started obsessing over death, you know, like, really, like, hard conversations with my head, you know, but then also taking these dark situations, and I was really doom and gloom. And I was talking, you know, to people who I cared about the most, and driving them away with the way that I was evoking these emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, we talked about that, and, you know, we've had some really good conversations around that, because the In Vivo Project podcast is all about empowering guys to lean into that vulnerability of what they're going through and not hold that in. And
I was holding it in.
Correct. Right.
And I was holding in, but I was also letting it out on the people who didn't need that. And it wasn't fair to them.
Right. Yeah. And again, so the whole process of this In Vivo project is letting guys get together with guys and dump that stuff off in a healthy way. Because, you know, with me having the honor to work with you a small bit during this process, that's one of the biggest things that we've talked about is being able to call me up and say, hey man, I'm having a real shitty day today. I need to get this stuff out of my thoughts. And then I can remind you, hey, we got this. We're on the right track. We're on the right program. All you got to do is keep stacking those wins together day by day, and the results will take care of itself. So you know, I love again that we're talking about this, you know, and you talked about the grieving process of the old Larry G into this new version, you know, and that is a real process. There's 5 stages of grief, you know. And I think, you know, from what I'm hearing you say, you were definitely going through those, but talk about, you know, we talked about some of the things that you were doing consistently that probably weren't the most healthy things. You know, and I'm not, you know, I think I wanted people to hear is that you don't have to be into full blown addiction to have bad things happen if you're doing unhealthy behaviors on a consistent basis. So talk just a little bit about those if you're comfortable of the things that were going on with you.
Oh, no, of course. I think leading up to it, this has been honestly a journey that I've been on, as far as like one thing my dad told me. He said, in order for you to get healthy, you have to think about it this way. Yeah. He said, just think about how long it took for you to ruin your body to get to this point.
Right.
So in order for you to get better, it's going to take double that amount of time. But when you peel back the layers and you start realizing, I've had, a struggle with my relationship with food for the longest time.
Same here, bro.
Yeah.
Same here.
It's, I remember, like, I could name you all the fast food restaurants here in the DFW. I know exactly where to go and how to get to them. And there were times when I was, back in my days when I was doing music and also like driving Uber on the side, like I would literally go from one fast food place to get like their burger or whatnot and go immediately to the other place because I like their fries better.
Right.
And then after that, a few hours later, I'd go head over to like a Taco Bell, Taco Bueno, not trying to call them out like that, but I just knew where to go. And I would do this consistently, but a lot of it was a pattern because I was unhappy, like with myself and maybe where I was at in life. And so people need to understand eating your feelings is real.
It's a real thing.
It is really real. But that's one portion of it. That's always been like me. Like I remember this one time I was on tour in Jacksonville and I was with my old band. This is before like the whole Larry G thing.
Right.
And we get to Jacksonville and we're driving in the van. This tells you how my brain works. And we're going down this road and I see this Dairy Queen.
I remember this story.
I'm driving us to the spot that we stay at. And I tell the guys, because the guys were so tired from driving, they're like, they go into their room. They're like, we're going to take a nap. I was like, cool, guys, I'm going to go for a jog. I legit memorized where that thing was on the way over to this house, that I dropped them all off. And then I got in my running clothes and ran all the way over to that Dairy Queen and just chowed down on like a chicken steak basket, just because like food, like again, it's just food. And when you think about it, just the food that you're putting in, it's a lot of processed meats and processed stuff that, like now looking back on it, is not good for you. So that's just one thing is the food. But, obviously as a musician, you're around a lot of other, temptations and stuff when it comes to, partying, and you have, drinks, you have, there are drugs that are involved.
Sure.
I never really got heavy into that stuff.
Yeah.
But I will say that I socially, I did take part in drinking.
Sure.
And I'd say too, like before I really got sick, it really got to a point where I knew, looking back on it now, like it would take me 6-10 drinks to feel something.
Yeah.
Because I was drinking so much, like
your tolerance had
my
been
tolerance
built up.
had gotten high.
Yeah.
And, you combine that, I have ADHD, so I'm taking Adderall.
Yeah.
But then I'm drinking coffee, and then I'm doing energy drinks at noon and doing energy drinks at like 5 at my work.
Right.
And I'm just consistently doing that. And then drinking sodas, like, Coke here, Diet Coke there. It doesn't matter. I was still doing this thing. And then I got involved with diet pills. Right before I got sick, there's this medication. Yeah. It's called it's a medication. It's a prescription weight loss medication that I took. And one of the main things that it tells you not to do is to drink and take the medication. And I was still doing that. Yeah. And then also it says like how it's bad for your kidneys, but I'd never read the fine print. And so I was doing all of this all the way up until, and, you know, I got sick, but I was losing weight,
right.
you know, with the diet pills.
Yeah, which is, you know, I think it really speaks to, and I think that's what you're talking about is for most people, if they hear that, oh, that's just a normal thing. You know, he's taking his ADD medication. He's, you know, who doesn't drink coffee? The energy drinks are more popular than they've ever been before. And God knows what's in those things because they, unless you want to take out a magnifying glass and read it all.
Right.
You know, and then you throw the diet pills on top of that, which, you know, all this stuff you can get online, online, have your consultation, check a few boxes, and the next thing you know, they're at your front door.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
Easy access.
Yeah, super easy access. And so I love how, you know, you're being vulnerable and talking about the things that got you to your diagnosis.
Yeah.
Which is just such a beautiful thing because we've talked about, okay, we've got this handful of things that you've been doing consistently over here. We're going to replace those behaviors with healthy ones. And I promise you, because I've been doing this for 13 years, if you will replace those behaviors, your body will respond in a positive way. So talk about what that transition from those unhealthy behaviors to the healthy behaviors has been like for you.
It's been like night and day.
Yeah.
And
I mean, bro, sorry to interrupt, but you are in the best shape of your life.
Yeah.
And I freaking love it.
I love it too.
Yeah.
I am in the best shape of my life. I also feel like there are a lot of things that I'm working on, like as of recently, that are going to get my mind in the best shape of its life.
Yes.
I think spiritually I'm in like a better space than I've ever been. But physically I'm more motivated than ever to turn this thing around. And it's obviously because of people like yourself, and other friends and as well as family who have been nothing but supportive, you know, of me. I have a really great, strong support system. And that's one thing that I thought about it. You know, a lot of people are like, you know, when it comes to like Instagram and it comes to like likes and it comes to like the social media world, it's always about how many likes and how many this. Really what it is, it's about how many friends do you have and how many of this. I was like, it's not about the quantity of your circle. It's the quality of your circle. And I think my circle being as small as it is just where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you have to have the right people in your corner with your best interests in mind.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I wouldn't say that I didn't have that, but maybe I just wasn't, you know, reaching out and trying to get help for it, you know, but they were there all along. And those are the people, those are the friends that are consistent. Those are the people that you don't have to be in contact with, you know, all the time, but when you need them, they're there for you at a drop of a dime.
Yeah.
And they don't keep receipts. They're just there to help and just there to listen. And that's been like one of the biggest things, like for me, is to have found kind of like a group of, especially male friends. You know, that's what I love about our brotherhood is that, you know, we've been through a lot together, but also our friendship has, you know, when you've seen someone at their lowest and you build them back up, I mean, that's one of the most satisfying, like greatest things you can ever have.
Yeah. And those are the kind of friends when you call up, they see the stuff in you that you may not even see at that time.
Yeah.
And they remind you of your greatness. And
well, I think too, man, in talking to you and like, you know, you came to me and we were talking about my situation. I think like your expertise in what you do with people at In Vivo was like the perfect mix or the perfect situation for me to like reach out to and actually really kind of get the help that your company has been able to do for me.
Yeah.
Because without you guys, I would have never been introduced to the people at the McDougall project,
Right.
which the people at, from Dr. McDougall's.
Yeah, that's a crazy story because you got that information from
from my brother.
Yeah.
He had talked about how his wife's cousin had kidney issues and basically followed this McDougall diet and basically said he turned his, fortunes around just by following a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I started watching videos and I wasn't really sure about it or anything. And I've been trying to remember how this all came up, but then you mentioned to me that you took one of your clients out to see him.
To the McDougall program. We went 5 years ago when they actually had in person. This was pre-COVID, and spent 10 days out there. So the minute you said that, we were still kind of formulating what your wellness program would look like.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the ticket.
Yeah.
This is the ticket. So you've changed your diet to a plant-based diet.
Plant-based diet. I've given up pretty much everything, and really what I stick to now is it's plant-based. It's vegetables, some rice,
fruit,
some fiber with fruit, and that is it.
Yeah.
Kind of getting technical, and the people who understand it will understand this if they're going through have kidney issues. But like right now, the goal with me is lowering my creatinine levels and raising my GFR. They're all tied together.
Right.
One goes low, the other one goes up.
Right.
And I haven't really even gotten into the program, but I've been fortunate enough because of your relationships with the McDougall program that I've been able to already communicate with them and start with them and get the ideas of what to do as far as when it comes to diet. And I've already seen a drop again in my numbers in a positive light.
Going in the right direction.
Going in the right direction. But yeah, I was kind of doing plant-based, but I really wasn't. And now with the McDougall program, like I am.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just been great to have accountability, with you, checking in, calling, making sure. Another thing I've taken up is walking.
Yeah, you've been getting your steps in, bro.
Yeah, I get like, close to 10. One day we did 20,000 steps.
Right.
But I've been just walking, and walking is like one of the best things, obviously, someone in my condition can do.
Yes.
I remember when I got diagnosed, I was around 195. Mm-hmm. Today, I'm 165. And even to
Dr. Lim
from the McDougall program, that's considered overweight. Like I've got to get down to 150 or under. Yeah. And when I hear those things, it just motivates me more to like really go after it, because I feel like now, especially with the numbers dropping, or going in my favor, it's become ever more so obvious. The game plan.
Yes.
You know what to do.
Right.
Just do it.
Get up and have your wins, man. And I love hearing you talk about it, because your whole being just changes into there's hope.
There's hope. Yeah, and you just got to believe. There's one thing that I don't have room for is doom and gloom people.
Yeah.
And I know I'm guilty of being that person myself. Yeah. But right now, in the space that I'm in and the person that I'm becoming on the daily, like I'm all about living life and making the best of every day, to improve or just to get myself where it needs to be.
Yeah, I love it. And so, on that note, prior to finding the McDougall program and getting involved with them, you were talking to just like mainstream doctors, and there was a lot of doom and gloom. And I think people need to hear this part of the story, because I think it's so important for anybody that might be going through any kind of chronic condition to hear what you're about to say.
Yeah. And so when you have kidney disease, there are options that are available out there for people like myself. One of those options is dialysis. The other option is a transplant. And I remember like the first time that my numbers had actually kind of like gone in my favor, how my nephrologist was like super pumped for me.
Yeah.
But then right in a second,
Yeah.
he went right into trying to sell me on getting on dialysis, buying a machine, and trying to decide which one to pick. And at that point, I started to have some skepticism.
Yeah, it takes the wind out of your sails,
It
man.
does, because it's like, what is this? Then you start wondering like if you're just a number to like these people. And really at the end of the day, I know that there are a lot of great doctors out there. My dad's one of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just don't know what people's intentions are. And so for him to try to sell me on that, I've also had dietitians try to sell me on that.
Yeah.
As far as like, oh, the numbers are good. Well, when you get on dialysis, like things will, and that's just not in my DNA, like to try and get on. Like if that time, there's no if, like I ain't headed that route. Like if you don't believe me, then don't come around me, because I'm fully focused and talking with someone like Dr. Lim
At the McDougall program.
at the McDougall program. He's basically instilled in me, like, he's like, it's good to have a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to situations like that, especially when he has seen and shown me like cases where people have reversed their chronic problems. Look, I know I'll never be able to rid myself of the CKD, but I can change the stages.
Yeah, you can put it into remission.
I can put it into remission.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he told me, he gave me a number. And one of these days, if we revisit, we'll talk about it. But he gave me a number of where I need to get to. And I'm right there. And I'm like, this is happening. He said, if you can get to this number, you can live with your kidneys, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm also to the point now, though, and as old as I am now, like where I'm like, if I have to eat this way for the rest of my life, yes. And honestly, I should have been eating this way.
Yeah.
Like I should have been more responsible, like with my health. But at the same time, I'm not going to knock myself. I was just living life, going with the flow. It was just life of the party. I wouldn't say I ever had like a problem with those things. I was always more so like a social person. I wasn't the type to drink every day. I wasn't the type to party all the time. But when I was around it, I was, fun. Like, and I'm still a fun person. That's the one thing that, people need to understand is like, you can still turn up and not be, 5 drinks in, you can still, I'm still who I am.
Yeah.
I'm still Gucci, like I'm good. Like, and, I'm still Larry G. I can still throw down on the mic if I want, but at the same time, I don't need it makes you realize that you don't need those things. In fact, I was on Adderall because of my ADHD. Having gone through this whole plant-based thing, my energy levels are off the roof.
Through the roof, man.
Yeah, through the roof. Like, I remember when we walked that one day where it was like 20,000 steps. Like I could have gone another 20,000. Like I was, I just have an abundance of energy in me. And, I just noticed some things like I don't get sick really, my skin is cleared up. That's one thing my sister said. She was like, the last time I saw it, the color of your skin was like off. You just look, and I look at old photos, coming from a world of, content creation, there's a lot of tricks that people can do to like really make themselves look good. There's filters and stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes people go a little bit overboard with that stuff, but that's for another show.
Sure.
But, I was doing that to all my photos. I was altering my weight. I was altering my face. I was altering, cheekbones. I was just making myself look like who I really didn't look like. And I remember recently looking at a photo that I had taken of myself that I had edited so much.
Yeah.
And looking at the raw one, yeah,
different person.
You see that person, you know that dude's got problems. Like I can look in my eyes and stuff, and it to where I'm at now, you know, like it really, it's opened my eyes a lot, you know, and yeah, who wants to go back to that? You know, like I don't know, man. I'm at, wouldn't say like I've reached the peak of peace, because I think every day is a fight to like get those numbers in and to eat good, but at the same time, not obsessing over it, but you know, working on it in a healthy way. That's just, I think like it just takes time and discipline.
Yeah. Just creating a healthy lifestyle. That's what I try to get people to do, is let's create a lifestyle when you wake up in the morning that you're excited to go do it. And you've always been a very positive and happy guy.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big Kobe Bryant fan. And so the Mambo mentality is what I love about what you've been doing, man. And I'm so proud of you for all the changes that you've made, and whether you know it or not. And I think this is the way it works, is that you've inspired me on levels that you probably have no idea. Thanks, man. Do certain things and continue on a journey. And you're right. Every day we wake up is a new day, and you got to get up and put one foot in front of the other and do the things that you do, to be successful, which are healthy behaviors, man. So
healthy behaviors, I think, go a long way, and it just creates an easier path to happiness, long-term happiness, and long-term, you know, health. Like at the end of the day, health is wealth.
And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
You don't have anything. You can have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
You know, but just the fact, man, that I'm where I'm at right now, like I feel so good.
That's amazing.
Like I feel like 100. And to think that all it took was like making some tweaks in my diet. Well, there were some major changes.
Yeah.
But just to be able to do that has been, you know, great.
Yeah. So talk about, I think we'll wrap up with talking about how this journey with your health has taking you on a new trajectory. But how has that worked into your career? What does that look like for you? What can we expect to see coming up? What are some things that you're working on?
Well, as far as like working on, when the whole thing went down in May, like the idea of like, obviously I've always done music. I had to put that on the back burner. Yeah. And so eventually within time, I do see myself, you know, I've already started, you know, quietly putting together some stuff where I'll probably get into writing again, and, you know, perhaps releasing, you know, some music soon, sooner than later. But at the same time, I'm not going to put like a timetable because I've got so many things that on board. And then also working at Artist Uprising, I work as a photographer and, you know, sometimes videographer, just creating content for that company. And I will say this, man, it's been really cool to like work for a company that supports you. Yeah. You know, that has your back, you know, and that's one of the things that they've been, you know, upfront with me, is like, any way we can support you, you know, like we got you. And, you know, yeah, I mean, like working with them, the relationship I have with the people there, the energy, you gotta, one thing that, you know, it's important is like, people got to protect their energy. Yeah. You know, and I'm very key about protecting like my energy and my space, and learning to set boundaries and stuff with, you know, the people that you love. Right. And just trying to live like a better, you know, lifestyle. I mean, my father just recently went to the hospital. Yeah. He had open heart surgery. And this has just been this past year, you know, that happened. Just recently. Right. So, and that's in the midst of me like going through everything, but seeing like how he's persevered and never once complained, never once like threw like a pity party for himself. It kind of woke me up to be like, there's no reason that I should ever ever be like a doom and gloom person. Like I need to look at this thing head on and just be grateful. And that's like the one thing that I can say is every day that I wake up, every night that I go to bed, I'm super grateful for the people that I have in my life. And, you know, my family and my health, and it just helps me it helps ground me. And I'm just looking forward to beating this thing.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm speaking it, man. Like I'm going to beat it, and I'm going to continue to get better with my numbers. And, yeah, I'm very hopeful for the future. I'm looking forward to continuing on this journey and growing from it.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be on this journey, and we're rooting for you, man.
Thank you, man. And thank you for like, you know, being there, you know, to help me out like through this whole thing. 'Cause it ain't easy, but, I don't think, God gives you anything that he doesn't think you can handle, you know?
100%.
And, I didn't know like how I didn't really understand that until I was going through it and stuff.
Yeah.
But I also do feel like there are so many outlets out there for all of us.
Yeah.
It's like reach out for help is out there. You just got to be willing to like ask for it and not be afraid to like get the help.
Yeah.
'Cause there are so many people out there that are willing and, you know, wanting to help. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm 100% grateful.
Yeah. So I hope anybody that's listening to this is hearing that, you know, the biggest thing to getting better is reaching out for help and talking about those things that are vulnerabilities for you. And you've done such an amazing job
Got to
articulating.
reach out to people.
Yes. You have to reach
Got to
out.
reach out to people, because if you don't and you bottle it up, or you bottle it up or you hold it in, you're going to end up hurting the people around you and the closest to you.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, you're pushing those people away.
Yeah.
And I was victim of doing that up until recently, when I got, you know, some help with a therapist, you know,
Yeah.
through your encouragement. It's helped me reassess like everything. And I'm taking every day, you know, one day at a time, and, you know, looking forward to, you know, seeing like what the future holds.
Yeah. So for anybody out there that's listening to this and they've connected, how can they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Larry GEE Music. Pretty much that's it. But I also released a project under another moniker, and that's Cabus, CABUS. That's my middle name. And you can find me at This Is Cabus.
Awesome. And then you can find the In Vivo Project on Instagram. You can also DM me at Eric_Payton on Instagram. So if anything's resonated with you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Larry, it's been so great having you on board. We can't wait to keep following your journey, and we're definitely going to have you back. So just get ready for that, because we're going to keep winning.
Let's go.
All right.
All right, man.
Peace. Oh,
You guys ready to start recording now?
Ready.
Ready to start recording?
Oh, God.
All right, that's 46 minutes.
Okay.